Hey friend, Levi here, and today I'm going to show you a super simple method for adding gorgeous hand-drawn title animations to your videos, either using your finger or an Apple Pencil. All you've got to do is draw in white over a black background and screen record. Then you take that file, bring it into your editing software, crop out the interface, change the blending mode to screen, time ramp the draw on, then duplicate and reverse to get it to draw off. And that's the simplest method for how to do that. Okay, if that was a little fast for you, I'm now going to walk you through step by step and share with you some tricks that I picked up for doing this well, and also show you how I 3D track these into my shots, just as a unique way to spice it up a little bit. So I use an iPad with an Apple Pencil when I don't lose it. If you lose it, you can actually use your finger in a pinch. Basically, you just need any device that will let you draw into it with touch and then screen record. So you can even use just basically any touch device. I like the iPad and the Apple Pencil because it's accurate and clean. My go-to app is called Procreate, and I like it because it's got a lot of different brushes built right into it, and you can use layers and stuff like that, just like Photoshop. So inside of Procreate, I have the user interface flipped to the light mode, so that way I can see more clearly what my canvas is. My background is set to black, and the reason for that is so that way the blending mode behaves properly when we're trying to get just white text. And I go over here, and in the brushes, I use the artistic category as my main go-to area. Basically, just any brush stroke that looks painterly is something that I like. And you can just try them out and just see kind of what you like here. So let's make a new layer and basically just draw on the screen while screen recording. So I have an accessibility shortcut over here, this little thing, and that lets me get to the control center so I can hit start record the screen capture. If I swipe down from the corner, it oftentimes, of course it works that time. Usually it takes the color over like that. So that's why I have an accessibility shortcut set up. So my favorite brush is called Turpentine. But you can just use whatever ones you want, and you can even modify the settings of how it goes on, so you can tinker with that if you wish. But basically, I just go over here and I just draw on. Boom. So that's me drawing on. Then I go over Control Center, stop record. You can click on the notification there, brings you to the video file. Hit the share icon there and airdrop it directly to your computer. Usually I'll do 5 or 6 titles all in one screen recording and then share it to the laptop. And I do this process at the end of the edit. So now let's look at some different little things you can do here. One of my other favorite ways to use this is actually doing brush on lower thirds. So I'll make the brush a little bit bigger, something like this. Make sure my screen recording is on, and then just do a nice big brush on like that. And what this does is you can put black text over that white brush stroke, composite those together, and when it wipes on, it looks like the text is cutting straight through the brush stroke. So this is kind of a fun way to just mix it up. I'm sure there's a lot of different other unique ideas that if you wanted to get creative you could think of, but this one I'm doing all the time. And then what I'll often do after that is, once I have the brush on recorded and I know it's good, I'll make a new layer, change the color to black, make my size a little smaller again. And this you don't need to screen record, but let's just say this is just episode. So now I'll go into layers and turn everything else off, so that way it's transparent in the background. Go to settings over here, share, and share it as a PNG with my laptop. So let's go to airdrop, boom. So later when we go into editing, we can take that PNG and put it straight over the brushstroke that we just put on, or we could literally just write a new piece of text and use the brushstroke as our guide. So we could write my name here and use it as a lower third and just take that PNG. So you can use the same brushstroke over and over again. Actually, if you want, I've got a pack of free hand-drawn elements that you can tinker with if you don't have your own iPad, and that's a great way to get started with this. But something that's so special about this is I think you can just be really unique with it. So whatever your way of doing this, each time I do one of these brush strokes, it looks different. But you can make tons of different elements here. So you can make little arrows to point at things. You could make circles to go around things. And by using different combinations of brush strokes and types and styles, that's just a lot of different, there's a lot of options of how you could utilize this. And it's kind of exciting. One of the things that I've been messing around with lately is inserting a photo and just drawing straight onto that while screen recording. So this is a map. And if we go over, I'm going to change over to the studio pen. Where is that? And then if I screen record, I can just like basically draw a journey of a drive onto the map and then import that in and animate that. That's kind of the basics of what I'm doing here. It's really not that complicated, which is awesome. So that's most of the work done on the iPad, just airdropping it straight to the computer every time I'm done with a layer or a screen recording file. And next up, I want to show you how to actually 3D track these into, let's say, a drone shot or something like that. And also show you some other cool editing tricks along the way. But first, I wanted to tell you about the sponsor of this video, and that is Squarespace. Squarespace is my go-to platform for building websites because just like this hand-drawn technique, it's very straightforward and easy to use, and it looks a lot more professional than the work you took to make it come to life. So just like, I love finding little areas where it takes little effort for a lot of reward, and building a website on Squarespace was that for me. So I tried to build my previous websites on different platforms, and I really struggled to get a website that I felt looked professional or didn't break when it was on mobile or have glitches and errors. And in a coffee shop, I built a more beautiful website on Squarespace in 15 minutes than I'd been able to build with my previous services in about 6 months. So that was great for me because that means I can spend more time focusing on the content I put on my website and less time on trying to become a web developer, which I'm definitely not. So if you have an idea that you're wanting to get out into the world, just make it happen. Stop delaying, go grab a free trial from Squarespace, build a website, and when you're ready to commit, make sure to use my code for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Okay, here we are inside of Final Cut, and the time that I insert and track all my titles is at the end of the editing process. So basically the only things left I have to do is color grade and titles. And I usually have my shots picked out that I think the titles are going to work best for, and it's all timed to the music and basically ready to go. So let's go over to where these titles, the screen recordings are. We're going to bring one in here. And when I import these files, they're usually massive like this with multiple drawing takes. So we're going to go to the area, usually it's at the end of the clip where my best take is. We're going to chop the beginning of the clip off and drag it to right around where we're going to put it. So step one is to crop the interface so that way you do not see it. And the reason why we're using videos instead of the time-lapsing function built in is that we get more fine-tuned control of the draw on speed, and the time-lapse mode built into Procreate basically is just really fast, and that's the only option. But because we did a screen recording, we get a more fine-tuned option where we could have it brush on really nice and slow, or we could speed it up. So we're going to speed it up next. Typically for draw on words, I do 750%. So we're going to use the range tool to speed ramp. Go right to the end of the drawing on. So right when that last word goes down, letter, sorry, I have a shortcut to bring up custom speed. We're going to set it to 750%, and boom, it is speed ramped. Okay, 750%, that's not looking quite fast enough for the duration of this clip. So let's just crank it up to maybe, let's go 1500 and see what that looks like. But 750%, if it's quick title, that's usually just about good enough. So you can change the handles here of how it ramps to normal speed. So okay, that's a good draw on speed. So sometimes at the end of the screen recording file, I didn't leave enough time for it to hold on the title. So you can just take the end of you can just drag out that last portion where it's just steady. So that way it doesn't move along and look all janky. Now we're going to go over and change the blending mode to screen. This is what gives it that transparency in the blacks. And if we play this back, boom, it draws on. And if you want to, what you could do is you could pre-comp this, duplicate it, and then reverse the one that you duplicated. So we'll change that, reverse it, speed that up a bunch. So that's another kind of cool trick you can do to just, if you want to get the title off the screen. So we're going to move deeper into our video here, and I'm going to show you some fun ways of using these brush on lower thirds. So this is an element I already made, and we followed the same steps. So we're going to go into this compound clip here. And one of the things I do when I want to know where I need to make a title is I put this little caption file right where I need one. So when I'm playing the edit, I can see, yep, this is a placeholder for a title. And if we go over down to our index and hit captions, it shows me the ones that I have left to do. So we're going to go ahead and delete this now because it's made. So we're going to go into this because this is a compound clip and we have a few elements here that I want to tell you about. So we've got our brush on file. So this is the same steps I followed before. It's just a brush on stroke and then I reversed to brush it off. So right there, boom, it brushes off. Now we took that black text transparency and we added that right over top, because when you put a black text layer over a white element and change the blending mode, then that will come across as transparent. So when we go back to our clip, that's why it's got that cool transparency thing going on. But what I like about this is that when we're over here, if you don't want to keep making new hand-drawn titles the whole time, you can just do black text. So this is just another title option, and it makes it just really fast for whipping together a title that maybe looks a little, it looks like you spent a little bit more time on it than just making a new text layer. But that's kind of a nice little cheat code for these brush-on strokes instead of always hand drawing new elements. Okay, so let's come back over here to the shot and look through the steps that we would take to actually 3D composite this into the scene, kind of like this guy is right here, where that looks like it's stuck in the 3D landscape. So what I'll do is I'll take the shot that I want to put the element over, I'll bump it up to the secondary storyline and get some handles to it, so that way it's a little bit longer, because we want a little more to work with for how we're going to edit this. Then I'll use the range tool to select it, and we're just going to render out that clip. Okay, we're going to bring the shot over into After Effects and create a new composition. Once in the composition, we're going to go over here, find the tracker, and click Track Camera. While we're waiting for the camera to solve, we're going to go ahead and place in this hand-drawn element over into After Effects. And we need to create a mask around the hand-drawn elements instead of cropping. You could crop it, but the mask is easy. So there's our mask. And then we're going to change the blending mode down here to screen. And then I used time remapping to do the speed ramp of the clip, so that way it draws on fast like that. Oh, I accidentally cut off a little bit of the end of the word. My bad. Okay, so our tracking is done. So we're going to click on the clip and click Create Camera. And what that does is makes a 3D scene with a camera and basically does all the really hard work for you. So now we're ready to place our objects within this 3D environment. So we're going to go over here and toggle the 3D option for the properties. And now if we go back and forth, our hand-drawn title element is placed right in the scene. So that's kind of a little close to camera, but that's it's fantastic how simple that is. I'm really stoked on how awesome and simple that is. So when we open up the position properties, we can push the track deeper into our scene. So let's go so we can see it. We can just keep pushing it into the scene till it's where we want it. And then if we open up the rotation properties, we can kind of fine tune the direction that it's facing and move it around a little bit. So that right there is the basics of dropping a 3D element into a drone shot. Typically for a landscape drone shot, I find that you actually have to push the element really deep into the scene, because this one has a lot of close objects, not as much. But on this third property right here, I usually set that to something around 10,000 if I want to push the element really deep into the scene and get a good track. But you can see the elements that are close to it, like this iceberg right here, to kind of just double check if it looks placed within the scene. So that's how you 3D track it in there, but sometimes I want to do the camera flyby thing. So what I might do is go over to Effects and Presets and open up Blur, drop that onto our element, go down to the Effects, Fast Blur, and keyframe some blurriness stuff going on here. So as we get closer to the object, let's blur that out, so that way it looks like it's actually placed in 3D space a little bit. So now as we get closer to that object, kind of looks like it's moving out of focus, and that's just another fun little layer that you can do so that way it tracks and looks good. Okay, so here's an example of another scene, and I just want to show you how we could create a drop shadow on this. So this right here is our text layer, and it's already tracked into 3D space. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to duplicate it, and then I'm going to invert it. So we did the duplication. Let's go over to invert. Grab the invert, drop it onto the one that you just made two of, and then we're going to change that blending mode to multiply. And then what we're going to do is really just distort this so that way it looks like it could be underneath the text. So I just basically flipped it, and something like that's looking okay. You can look at the other shadows in the scene to get a cue. Then we're going to press T to open up opacity and try to match a little bit. Go to blur. So we're going to take blur, drop that on that layer, crank it up a little bit. And that's another sweet way to really make the elements look like it's in the scene. So as it draws on now, it really, it's got that cool shadow dropping underneath it. That's a cool tip. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you found some of these tips and tricks helpful. I'd love to see the ways that you are implementing this in your videos. Please share these with me on Twitter or Instagram. It makes me so happy to see them. Share this with your friends if they're looking for cool ways to up their production value. If you have any questions throughout the videos coming up, please let me know, because I want to create some more education stuff as we go into the winter here. I just want to be as helpful as possible. So if that's something that you have questions on, or if you appreciate that, do the things that you're supposed to do. That's it for this one. Remember, life's better when you make stuff. Peace.